Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to a time of stone walls, smoky hearths, and jingling church bells, a medieval village where the sky smells of damp straw and the air rings with the clang of blacksmiths and the cries of market women. You're walking barefoot on muddy roads, skirt heavy with dew, hair braided by your mother before dawn. The village wakes early, but today is not just another day. Today is your wedding day. Except you didn't plan this. You didn't dream of a dress, you didn't flirt across candlelit tables, and you definitely didn't swipe right. In fact, you're maybe 13, 14, if you're lucky, and this entire romantic moment was arranged by your father over mugs of ale and a goat trading agreement. Romantic right. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from and what time is it for you? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You glance down at your hands. They're trembling. You're about to become someone's wife, and no one's really explained what that means. A veil is draped over your head. It's scratchy and smells faintly of lavender and sheep. The priest is talking in Latin, which you don't understand, but everyone around you is nodding solemnly. Your soon-to-be husband is older, much older, 35, maybe 40. You've never spoken to him directly, but he has good teeth, only 3 missing. Your mother squeezes your shoulder gently, which is medieval speak for smile, or this gets worse. You try. The wedding ceremony is brief and oddly impersonal. You're not the star here. This is a transaction. A dowry changes hands, a few silver coins, perhaps a cow, maybe a strip of land if your family's feeling generous. In exchange, you're handed over like a package. You are now a wife. Historians still argue whether medieval parents believed they were protecting their daughters by marrying them off young or simply offloading another mouth to feed. Either way, your life has changed, and not for the more glamorous. That first night, you're not even sure where you're supposed to sleep. There's no lacy honeymoon suite. You're escorted to a cramped wooden bed beside the hearth, while the rest of the household quietly avoids eye contact. You feel like a guest in your own skin. You curl up aching from the day's confusion, listening to the wind whistle through the thatch roof. The morning after, no one asks how you feel. There are chickens to feed, laundry to scrub, and bread to bake. You're handed a pail and a frown. This is what being a wife looks like. Let's pause here and say what you're probably thinking. This sounds terrible. And yeah, you probably wouldn't survive this. Not just because of disease or famine, but because every part of this life grinds down your will bit by bit. By the way, did you know medieval people believed the position of the stars at your wedding could affect your fertility? Some couples delayed the wedding for weeks just to align with Venus. A little astrological foreplay, if you will. Still, no amount of stargazing changes the fact that you're now expected to obey your husband, bear children, and never complain. Love. That's a luxury for ballads and troubadours. You get duty. You try to find meaning in the small things. A good harvest, a neighbor's kind word, a silk ribbon from the traveling merchant, if your husband's feeling generous, which is rare. You're learning quickly that joy like sugar is expensive and comes in tiny, rare doses. Your social circle, it's shrunk. You no longer spend afternoons chatting with your sisters or laughing at village fairs. Now your friends are pots and pans, and maybe if you're lucky, a nearby wife who offers a knowing smile over the garden hedge. And still expectations pile on like firewood. Your husband wants a warm meal, a clean house, a son. The village expects piety, obedience, and decency. The church expects you to embrace suffering as your spiritual duty. And if you step out of line, even slightly, there are public shaming rituals ready to knock you back into place. You once watched a woman dragged through town for nagging her husband. They made her ride backward on a donkey, wearing a paper crown that said scold. Everyone laughed. You didn't. There's one moment that lingers. On your third day as a wife, you drop a clay jug. It shatters loudly, and silence falls over the room. You brace for a scolding. Instead, your husband just sighs and walks out. That's worse, somehow. The absence of anger, the quiet weight of disappointment. You sweep up the pieces alone, the dust stinging your eyes. And yet beneath all this, you start noticing things. Little acts of rebellion. A woman who wears her hair uncovered, another who speaks just a bit too boldly at the market. You hold on to those women like lanterns in fog. Your dreams. You folded them small like embroidery tucked in a chest. You imagine a day you might have a daughter, and you promise yourself you'll try to give her something better. But you're not sure you can. Because here now in this life, being a medieval wife isn't a fairy tale. It's a tether, a role you didn't choose. And tonight, as you lie awake, listening to the wind and the soft shuffle of mice in the walls, you wonder if anyone sees the girl still inside you, the one who ran through fields and climbed apple trees, the one who wasn't yet called wife. The first time you hear the word dowry, you're 6, maybe 7. It drifts into your ears like smoke from the cooking fire, half understood, but heavy. You're playing in the dirt outside the cottage, tracing shapes with a stick, when you hear your mother and aunt whispering about it, what your dowry might be, what your marriage might bring, and whether your family can afford a second daughter marrying that low. You don't understand much, but you understand this. You're going to cost someone something. Now you're a wife, and the dowry has already changed hands. It wasn't a romantic gift box tied in ribbon. It was an economic exchange coins, maybe a bolt of cloth, a bit of land or livestock. Not a prize exactly, more like a bribe to convince a man to take on another hungry mouth. Historians still argue whether dowries empowered women by giving them a financial stake or just reduced them to walking price tags. Either way, yours was discussed more than your feelings ever were. You weren't in the room when the deal was made. You were probably fetching water or sweeping floors while the grown-ups clinked cups and muttered about what she's worth. Imagine your life summed up in a sheep, 2 copper pots, and a half-used prayer book. Charming, even now, in your husband's home, you're still aware of it, because everything you do is weighed against that transaction. He didn't marry you, he married your dowry, the extra field he can plant now, the goat your father tossed in as a sweetener, and if your family promised more than they delivered, oh boy, there might be grumbling, cold shoulders, maybe worse. You overheard once that a local man returned his bride within a week because her dowry had been exaggerated. She was sent back like a defective cartwheel. And here's the twist: if your husband dies, your dowry might come back to you, but only maybe. Because if your in-laws claim it was consumed in the marriage, whatever that means, they can just keep it. You'd have to petition the local lord or even the church to get it back. Imagine begging for the return of your own goats while trying to keep your children fed. There's a fringe theory some scholars float that a clever woman could squirrel away a bit of her dowry, hide a few coins under a loose hearthstone, tuck away a necklace in a flour sack. But that was a gamble, and if your husband found out, well, let's just say the sharing buck of marriage didn't go both ways. One woman you know, Magda, who lives 3 cottages down, told you once in a voice like candle smoke that she wished her dowry had been spent on books instead of pigs. She laughed after she said it, but her eyes didn't. It's not just the loss of choice that stings. It's that everyone talks about your worth as if it's all numbers. Even now, the neighbors gossip. Oh, she came with a full cart of apples and 3 silver spoons. You're reduced to household inventory. Your wedding day still echoes in your mind. The priest muttered something about being one flesh, and everyone nodded like it was beautiful. But no one explained that it meant your property, what little you might inherit, was now his. If your father dies and leaves behind land, your husband decides what happens to it. You're part of the furniture now, even in your own legacy. Still, some rare exceptions break through the gloom. A few wealthier families write contracts, long, meticulous parchments spelling out exactly what the wife can keep if things go wrong. These prenuptial gems are rare and mostly for nobles, but they exist. There's even one case in Italy where a woman sued for her dowry and won. But for every one of those stories, there are hundreds where the wife simply disappeared into her husband's account ledger. And here's a quirky tidbit for you. In some parts of medieval Spain, instead of a dowry, the husband had to offer a bride price, a gift to the bride's family. It sounds nice until you realize it usually just meant more livestock changing hands. Love, as always, was left out of the negotiations. You walk through your new home, and everything feels borrowed. The pots, the bench, the hearth, all his. You think of the tiny things your mother packed for you in a sack, a wooden comb, a cross stitched with her initials, a tiny vial of rosemary oil for scenting your hair. Your real dowry, in a way. Her quiet love passed down in objects too small for a ledger. Your fingers brush the edge of the comb, now hidden beneath your bed straw, and it grounds you a little, because if everything else here was bought, at least that wasn't. Still, the tension never leaves. You hear the way your husband haggles in the market, complains about prices, measures value by weight and worth. You know deep down that he does the same with you. At night, you lie on your side watching the flicker of the dying fire and wonder if things will ever feel equal, or if you'll always be trying to justify your cost. Maybe someday, if you have a daughter, you'll save up coins in secret. Build her a dowry she can control. Or maybe Maybe you'll teach her how to live without one. Your wedding veil hasn't even finished shedding straw from the hay cart ride, and already you're learning the most important word in a medieval marriage: obedience. You wake up earlier than the chickens, earlier than the sun, and you move quietly. You've quickly discovered that being a good wife means being invisible when not needed and present when called. You're not meant to speak first, not meant to question, and certainly not meant to disagree. That vow you murmured at the altar to honor and obey, it wasn't a poetic flourish. It was law, custom, and religion rolled into one. You are expected to submit, not negotiate. You are his helpmate, his servant, his second soul. But always second. Historians still argue whether medieval women internalized this submissiveness or simply acted it out to survive. Either way, you're performing every moment. And the stage is your new home. You learn to read your husband's footsteps when he's in a good mood, slower, almost jaunty, and when not sharp, quick, uneven. You can hear the day's tone in the slam of the door. Did he win his market haggle? Did someone insult him at church? Either way, you'll feel it. Once you accidentally added too much salt to the pottage. He didn't yell. He just pushed the bowl away and left. You told yourself that was a blessing. There's no space for personal whims. You used to hum while working in your father's house. Now even a soft melody draws raised eyebrows. You aren't quite sure what happened to your voice, but you notice it goes unused more and more. He has the final say on everything: what you eat, where you go, who you talk to. Your walk to the village well becomes your only breath of freedom, but even that is not yours entirely. A wife seen speaking too long to a neighbor might be spreading tales. A wife who walks too slowly might be accused of vanity. You keep your eyes down and your errands brisk. Quirky detail here: in some parts of medieval England, local courts issued scolding licenses, mock permissions, meant to shame wives who talked too much. Imagine needing a permit just to complain about the laundry. You're reminded constantly of your place by those around you. The priest preaches about the weaker vessel every Sunday. Your mother-in-law mutters thin-lipped comments about how she never let her bread go dry or her husband go thirsty. The other village women, some with quieter despair in their eyes, smile at you in brief flashes of solidarity and vanish back into their own daily obedience. Your husband isn't necessarily cruel. He's just normal, which in this time is worse. He expects deference, not because he enjoys it, but because he doesn't think there's an alternative. You aren't his partner. You're part of the order of things, like rain and taxes. Even noble women with their rings and silks aren't better off. You hear tales of baronesses locked in towers for disagreeing with their lords, or forced into religious houses when their husbands tired of them. Castles may look grand, but their walls echo just as cold. Still, sometimes in the quiet moments when no one's watching, you do tiny things to remember yourself. A flower tucked behind your ear, a stitched edge on a tunic that no one else sees. Once, when your husband was away at a festival, you danced just a few steps barefoot in the garden mud. There are nights you remember your childhood, sitting under the sky, dreaming of being chosen one day of love. You didn't know then, that choice was a luxury. Your marriage was arranged like the weather, something that just happened to you, and you were expected to endure it. Did you know that in medieval Germany, there were marriage benches placed in churches, wooden seats, where couples sat during their wedding ceremony? The man always sat to the right, the side of power. The woman on the left, the side of the heart. Sounds sweet until you realize the heart was seen as the seat of emotions, not reason. Translation: the man thinks, the woman feels. He rules. And when a wife did assert herself, there were consequences. Shaming, whispers, sometimes violence. A woman named Alice, from a village just over the river, once refused to hand over her inheritance to her husband. She was accused of witchcraft within the year. The charges didn't stick, but her reputation never recovered. You dream of what it might be like to make a decision, a real one, to choose your own supper, to spend your dowry without permission, to say no without trembling. You think of that sometimes while scrubbing pots or kneading dough. You shape your rebellion in flour and quiet thoughts. But you're also practical. You know when to keep your head down. You've learned to speak softly, move quickly, and smile just enough. You're learning how to survive marriage, not enjoy it. Your husband sleeps deeply. You lie awake longer, your hands resting on your stomach, wondering if you're already carrying the next part of this contract, a child. If you are, the rules double. Now you're not just a wife, but a mother, and with that comes even less say over your life. Still, as you watch the firelight flicker on the wooden beams above your bed, you make a quiet promise to yourself: I will keep a piece of me. Even if it's hidden, even if it's small, because even in obedience, you are still you. Somewhere under the linen and the silence, a voice waits. The first time you miss your monthly bleeding, you don't say anything out loud. You just pause mid-scrub at the wash basin, fingers stiff in cold water, and feel the weight settle in your belly. Not just the imagined flutter of a child, but the realization that your body is no longer your own. Pregnancy in medieval times isn't a celebration, it's a reckoning. You're expected to be grateful. This is your purpose after all. Be fruitful and multiply, they said at the altar. But no one told you about the ache in your back before dawn, the dizziness that comes when you've eaten too little bread, and too much anxiety, or the quiet, constant fear that it might go wrong, and it so often does. Historians still debate just how common maternal death was in the Middle Ages, but let's just say the odds weren't comforting. 1 in 5, 1 in 10. Either way, the gamble is not in your favor. You've already seen it in your village. A young woman clutching her swollen belly 1 week, her body carried out, wrapped in linens the next. And if you die in childbirth, people will say you fulfilled your role. You'll be praised as a good wife, even as they dig your grave. Still, the world doesn't pause for your swelling stomach. You're expected to keep working, fetching water, baking, sewing, hauling bundles of firewood. There's no maternity leave here, no cozy months of nesting and soft lullabies. You work until your body refuses. Your mother tries to help. She brings bundles of dried herbs, raspberry leaf, for strength mugwort, for easier labor. There's no doctor. Only the village midwife, a woman named Aldrida, who smells faintly of garlic and soot. and has calloused hands that know things no priest ever will. Aldrita doesn't promise safety. She just nods and tells you to keep your feet warm and your spirits low. Too much joy invites jealousy, she mutters, once eyes scanning the sky. You don't ask what she means. There's a fringe belief among the village women that if you crave sweet things during pregnancy, it means a girl, and if you dream of wolves, it means a boy. You crave nothing. You only dream of rain, endless and gray. Your husband doesn't change much. He notes your condition with a nod as if he's just observed a tree beginning to bud. Sometimes he touches your belly, not with wonder, but curiosity, like a man testing the ripeness of fruit. You don't tell him how scared you are. And here's the bitterest truth. If you birth a daughter, your failure will be whispered before your stitches even heal. A girl is less valuable. A girl costs more to marry off. A girl like you is just another burden to manage. You lie in bed some nights, hand on your belly, trying to will a boy into being. Not because you want one, but because it would make your life a little easier. There's a strange, heavy joy in the movement. When the child finally kicks, it surprises you. Not because of the sensation, but because it's the first time in months you felt something that was truly yours. But even that is fleeting. When the time comes, there is no warm water bath or soft bed. You squat, groaning, gripping the edge of the table, sweat soaking your hair. Aldrita is there, barking instructions, pressing your back, murmuring prayers in Latin, and cursing in plain English. The pain is like being unstitched from the inside. You don't scream, or maybe you do. It's hard to tell through the blur. Someone stuffs a piece of leather between your teeth. You taste salt iron and fear. The birth lasts hours, or days. Time disappears. At one point, you think you hear your mother weeping in the next room. Then everything goes dark. When you wake, there's a bundle in your arms. A girl. She's tiny, red-faced, silent at first, then squalling like a storm in a teacup. You feel something crack inside you, not disappointment, not joy, just weight. A knowledge that you've brought another you into the world. Another small girl who will grow into obedience and expectation. Another future wife. Your husband looks down at her nods once, then turns away. No celebration, no feasting. She doesn't have a name yet. You whisper one in the quiet of the night, Elena. It means light. You hope she finds it. Here's a strange custom in some parts of medieval France. A newborn wasn't considered fully alive until it had been baptized. Until then, it was called liminal, not quite of this world. You hold Elena close, kiss her damp forehead, and think she's real enough to me. There's no rest. Your body is torn, aching, leaking in every direction. But by sunrise, you're back on your feet, stirring pottage, folding linens, trying not to let the blood seeping into your shift show. No one asks how you are. They ask if the baby is feeding, if she cries too much, if you've stopped bleeding. The bar is survival. The midwife visits once more, presses your stomach, nods grimly, and leaves you with a cloth bundle of bitter herbs. Your daughter wails. You bounce her gently, murmuring nothing words. She's warm against your chest, small and stubborn. You realize then that this is the one part of being a medieval wife that does belong to you. Not your name, not your body, not your future, but this child, this little soul, wrinkled and wide-eyed, is yours. For now, you don't know what her life will be like, but you already know this. You'll do everything in your quiet, stubborn power to make it better than yours. You blink awake to the low wail of your baby girl. It's still dark outside, the kind of heavy, velvety dark that presses against the windows like a secret. You reach for her half asleep, one breast already aching with fullness. This is your new rhythm feed, rock, hush, repeat. You barely notice the hours pass anymore. Time has melted into milk and murmurs. Motherhood is meant to be the crown of a wife's life, or so they say. But you're starting to wonder if it's more of a chain. During the day, you carry Elena in a sling made from an old linen shawl tied close to your chest so you can work. Your body still hurts from the birth, your belly loose and sore, your back stiff, but there's no such thing as postpartum recovery here. The bread needs kneading, the floor needs sweeping, the child must eat. You find yourself walking differently now, slower, with a new kind of watchfulness. Every corner holds danger. Open fires, sharp tools, unlatched doors. A spilled bucket of water becomes a hazard. And yet, there's no such thing as baby-proofing in your world. You just do your best and hope. And hope in this case is thin armor. What they don't tell you is how much blame comes with motherhood. If your baby cries too much, it's because you ate the wrong herbs. If she falls ill, it's because you offended a neighbor. If she doesn't walk early or speak soon, it's your failure, not fate. Historians still argue whether medieval society truly believed that a mother's thoughts could spoil her milk, but the idea lingers like smoke. You guard your moods like secrets. Smile when you feel like crying. Hum lullabies even when your voice trembles. And if the child dies, as many do, you become suspect. A mother whose baby doesn't live is whispered about, pitied at best, feared at worst. You remember a girl named Elizabeth from your village. Her child died just weeks after birth. They said it was bad air or maybe a cold fever, but someone whispered that she had been seen wandering alone at dusk. The priest muttered something about sin. No one sat near her in church after that. Even in grief, women are made guilty. You hold Elena tighter after that. Watch every breath she takes. Pray to saints you barely believe in. You even leave tiny offerings at the foot of a willow tree. Behind your house, crumbs of bread, a piece of lavender, a folded scrap of cloth. Superstition, perhaps. But sometimes superstition is all a mother has. Here's something odd. In parts of medieval Italy, mothers would sew tiny charms into their babies' clothing, bits of coral, carved bone, or even dried bat wings meant to ward off the evil eye. You haven't gone that far. Yet. Your husband doesn't say much about Elena. He nods when she gurgles, pats her head now and then. He seems vaguely pleased, but detached. She's not useful yet. Not until she can carry a pail or mend a hem. Until then, she's just one more mouth to feed. You sometimes envy him. He sleeps through her cries, eats his meals while they're still warm, goes to the tavern without asking. His life has changed so little, while yours has disappeared into layers of cloth and fatigue. And yet you wouldn't undo it. You can't explain why. Maybe it's the way Elena's eyes follow you, or the little sigh she makes when she sleeps against your chest. Maybe it's because you know, deep down, you know that you're the only one who sees her completely. She is yours in a way nothing else in this world has ever been. But being a mother doesn't shield you from being a wife. Your husband still expects you to serve him, to keep the house as you did before. The days blur together in a cycle of needs, his, hers, and yours buried somewhere beneath. Your body belongs to your child, your time to your husband, and your thoughts. Well, they're the last thing anyone cares about. There's a saying among the older women, a mother's heart must be made of iron and honey. You're starting to understand what that means. Sometimes, in the rare hum of the afternoon, you talk to Elena. You tell her stories from your childhood. You tell her about the stars. You tell her little truths that no one else will hear, that you're tired, that you're afraid that you once wanted to be a weaver or a midwife or a poet. She listens wide-eyed, grabbing at your hair with her tiny fingers. You wonder if she'll remember any of it. Probably not. But maybe something in her will carry those words forward like seeds tucked in a pocket. Here's the strangest part: you begin to find strength in the very thing that's draining you. The long nights, the aching arms, the quiet resilience. You start to see yourself differently, not as broken or weak, but as weathered wood. Bent, but not splintered. You walk into the market one day with Elena strapped to your chest, and for the first time, someone calls you mother instead of wife. And it feels like a small kind of victory, a shift, a new name carved from the ruins of the old. You're still a wife, still a servant in many ways, but now you are something else too. A protector, a witness, a seed planter. You hum a tune as you stir the pottage that evening. Your husband grunts in response, not quite noticing. Elena squeals and grabs a wooden spoon. The fire crackles. The room glows gold, and for one fragile, flickering moment, you feel something close to peace. Not joy, not yet, but peace. And that in this world is everything. The seasons shift quietly around you. Winter's claws loosen, the snow melts into rivulets, and tiny green shoots poke through the black earth. Spring is here, but there's no celebration, not really, just more work. Because here's a hard truth. Being a medieval wife isn't just about motherhood or marriage. It's also about labor. Endless, invisible, back-breaking labor. You wake before the sun most days. Not with a gentle stretch and a yawn, but with the sharp cry of Elena or the creak of the door as your husband rises for the fields. You slip from bed, still half dreaming, and begin your daily ballet. Relight the hearth, pour water from the barrel, start the pottage, all before your body has even fully woken up. Your hands are never still. There's bread to knead wool, to spin clothes, to mend chickens, to feed a garden, to tend. You don't own the land, of course, but that doesn't mean you're not part of it. Your work is stitched into every season. The scholars call it subsistence labor. You call it survival. There's no such thing as a day off. Even the Sabbath, supposedly a time of rest, demands preparation. You clean the house, wash your shift, brush ash from the hearth, All so the priest doesn't frown at you on Sunday morning. And yes, you go to church, whether or not you believe every word. Because a good wife is pious. A good wife is obedient. A good wife doesn't ask questions. Historians still argue whether medieval women found any freedom in their domestic work or whether it simply chained them more tightly to the household. You think maybe both. Some days you find solace in the rhythm of tasks. Other days the repetition feels like drowning. There's a small moment that lingers with you, kneeling in the garden dirt beneath your nails, a soft breeze brushing your face. Elena is wrapped on your back, dozing against your shoulder. For a second, the world feels almost kind. The sun is warm. The earth smells sweet. You could almost forget the rest. But it doesn't last. Your husband returns at dusk expecting food, a clean tunic, and silence. He rarely asks about your day, and if he does, it's a formality. You might say, "The goat chewed through the fence," or "The baby won't take milk," and he'll grunt already halfway out the door again. Off to the tavern, or to speak with the reeve, or simply to escape the noise of home. You wonder sometimes if he even likes being a husband. But then again, you wonder if you like being a wife. And neither of you really has the luxury of choice. In some parts of medieval England, the law required wives to obey their husbands in all lawful things. What counts as lawful is, of course, up to interpretation and usually not yours. You've heard of women punished for refusing to bake bread or for speaking too sharply to their husbands in public. Scolds, bridles, ducking stools, even public shaming parades. The line between private disobedience and public punishment is thin and brittle. There's a fringe tale, probably exaggerated, about a woman who placed leeches in her husband's boots for mistreating her. They say she vanished after that. Whether into exile or a grave, no one knows. You smile at the story, just a little, then feel guilty. Sometimes another woman visits you, Marjorie, from the next cottage. She's older, sharp-eyed, quick with her fingers. You talk while you spin wool, your spindles clicking softly in rhythm. She teaches you little tricks, how to mend a hem with invisible stitches, how to bake bread that stays soft for more than a day, how to avoid the bailiff's taxes with clever counting. She also teaches you how to spot bruises hidden under sleeves. Not because she expects yours, just because she knows. Wives see everything she says once, voice low. We have to. That sticks with you. And here's the thing. No one writes in the court records or sermons, wives keep each other alive. Whether it's passing a jar of broth over a fence, or hiding a neighbor's bruises, or distracting the priest with small talk so someone else can sneak a nap, it's all part of the code. An unspoken network of survival. You start to look for those signs more now. The sag in another woman's shoulders, the too quiet smile, the faint limp. And you try to be the kind of wife who offers what little comfort she can, because no one else will. Your tasks continue. You learn to brew ale, one of the few jobs wives are praised for publicly. A good batch can earn some coin, or at least a bit of respect. You find pride in that. The warm, yeasty smell rising from the vat, the careful skimming of foam, the first taste from a wooden ladle. It's a small joy, but it's yours. And that's the strangest part of being a medieval wife. Every day brings a dozen tiny losses and maybe one small win. A clean tunic drying by the fire, a baby that sleeps for more than an hour, a loaf of bread that rises just right. You begin to measure your life in those things. Not in grand moments, just in what you manage to hold on to. You collapse into bed each night, muscles sore, hands raw, eyes half closed. Your husband snores beside you. Elena breathes softly in her cradle. You've done nothing remarkable today, nothing the scribes will write down. But your home is warm, your child is fed, your wool is spun, and somehow you've made it through another day. You wake one morning to a town that feels alive, in a way it rarely does. The air is crisp, the sky a gentle pale blue, and through the thin cracks under your door, you can hear a murmur rising like a wave festival day. St. Bridget's Day. They call it a time when the hard grip of winter loosens and the earth seems to exhale in celebration. The market square hums with excitement, stalls overflowing with fresh produce, honeycomb, fragrant herbs, and bolts of cloth in colors so bright you almost don't believe they exist. Children dart between legs and barrels, their laughter carrying over the chatter of the townsfolk. You take a deep breath and try to savor it, even if it feels like a strange guest in your daily life. You wrap Elena close to your chest, the familiar weight grounding you as you step outside. The sling's rough linen rubs against your worn dress, the fabric a patchwork of small repairs and faded stains. The ground underfoot is hard-packed dirt, trampled and sticky from recent rains, and the scent of smoke from the communal ovens mixes with the sweet smell of spring flowers blooming along the lane. The town is a kaleidoscope of noise and color, but you move through it carefully, as if you're walking on fragile glass. Your world usually revolves around the steady routine of the household, the relentless cycles of chores and care, but today it stretches out wider, beckoning you to something new. You pretend you're just here to buy flour, but really you're hungry for a glimpse of something beyond your daily grind, a break from the endless spinning of wool, the fire's constant demands, the way your body aches before the sun has even fully risen. The market stalls bustle with life. A potter hammers rhythmically at clay, shaping it into bowls that might hold someone's stew for a whole week. A butcher's apprentice sharpens knives, his hands steady and sure. You spot the baker's wife. Her cheeks flushed from the heat of the oven, selling thick slices of sweet cake. You pause at a stall selling ribbons, their colors catching the light like little flames, and you think how long it's been since you wore something that wasn't hand-sewn and plain. Among the crowd, you catch glimpses of other women, girls really, who remind you of who you once were, before marriage, before motherhood. Their dresses are clean and unmarked, their laughter unburdened. They lean close to their chosen partners, whispering secrets that make their eyes sparkle. You wonder briefly if they envy you, with Elena's tiny fingers curled around your dress and the gold band on your hand that marks you as claimed. Or if they look at you and feel relief, grateful for the shelter that marriage provides against the harshness of the world. You don't blame them. Sometimes you envy them too. Being a wife has made you visible in new ways. You are recognized, now nods of greeting, thrown your way like small gifts. You hear Elena's mother, Tom's wife, as if your identity is a simple label, a title to wear. And yet, it's a narrow kind of fame. You're known, but you're boxed in. Like a candle behind glass, your light is steady but confined. The festival's noise rises as a traveling performer arrives. She's a woman standing tall and proud, with hair the color of ripe chestnuts cascading down her back. Her fingers are nimble, twirling puppets and ribbons with a magician's grace. She tells stories in verse, her voice weaving a spell over the crowd. Songs about heroic knights who rescue princesses, tales of clever wives who outwit greedy lords, and legends of saints who walked the earth with miracles at their fingertips. One story catches your ear, a humorous tale about a miller's wife who tricks the taxman into giving her a goose. The crowd roars with laughter as the taxman falls into the river, his boots flapping wildly. You laugh too quietly at first, then more freely. But as you wash the soot from your cooking pot later that evening and bounce Elena on your hip, the story loops endlessly in your mind. That wife in the song, she was clever, quick-witted, free. You wonder for a flickering moment if she ever had to hide bruises under her sleeves or scrub the hearth while her heart ached. Did she, like you, count the minutes between chores, the fleeting moments of laughter and light? Historians still argue whether festivals and traveling performers offered medieval women real escape, or were just illusions, brief glimpses of a world beyond their cages, only to be swallowed again by the weight of daily life. You're beginning to think that even illusions matter, because for one afternoon you felt more than a pair of tired hands. You felt alive. Back at home, your husband returns from the alehouse, his face flushed and his mood buoyed by the crowd's revelry. He talks more than usual about the new plow the reeve is bragging about, the runaway pig that caused chaos in the northern fields, the brewer's daughter who's rumored to be seeking a husband. You stir the stew quietly, nodding without much thought, letting his words wash over you like rain against the window pane. Then unexpectedly, he leans back, a crooked grin breaking through his usual stoic expression, and says, "You look nice today." You blink. A compliment from him. You smile faintly, wanting to believe it's genuine. Maybe the festival softened something inside him, or maybe he appreciated how you didn't complain when he staggered in late. But you know well enough that compliments from your husband are like eclipses, rare, strange, and often leaving you unsure whether to believe the light or the shadow. You've learned not to need them. That night, after tucking Elena into her cradle, you sit on the wooden doorstep outside your home and look up at the sky. The stars twinkle faintly in the cool night air, scattered like pinpricks of light on black velvet. You used to know their names. Your mother taught you when you were small, pointing out constellations with flower-dusted fingers after the hearth fires had died down. Now you can recall only a handful: Orion's belt, the North Star, the graceful shape of the swan. You whisper their names softly, as if speaking them aloud will bring some kind of magic. Your husband is already snoring inside, oblivious to the quiet ceremony outside. A shooting star streaks across the sky, swift and brilliant, and you smile to yourself. You don't make a wish. You stopped believing in wishes a long time ago. Still, for a heartbeat, something in your chest feels lighter. You let the cool night air curl into your lungs, your shoulders relax, and your mind wander like a bird released from a cage. Here's a curious detail you've recently learned in parts of medieval France. It was believed that dreaming of water signaled change was coming. Your sleep is often broken now, too many hours spent waking to Elena's cries, or your husband's distant shouting. But that night, when you finally drift off, you dream of a wide rushing river. You stand on its muddy bank, Elena, in your arms, staring across the dark water. There's no bridge, no easy way over, but you take a step forward anyway. You wake with the image still clinging to your mind. Not frightening, not sad, just strange. The river feels like a threshold, something unknown on the other side. The festival fades, the crowds thin, the ribbons come down, and the market square returns to its usual hum of barter and labor. Life settles again, dust settling after a storm. But inside you, something has shifted. Not restlessness exactly, but a subtle, persistent stirring. Like your skin no longer fits quite right. You find yourself singing again. Old songs, the ones your grandmother hummed, while spinning thread her voice soft and steady in the dim light. You sing under your breath as you work barely loud enough for Elena to hear, but she always does. Her little eyes widen when she hears the melody, and she grasps at your hair with tiny fingers. The neighbor's wife stops by asking if you can help tend her goats next week. You agree not because you love goats or need the work, but because it offers a rare chance to step beyond your walls, a chance to breathe different air, to see new faces, to remind yourself that there's a world beyond these narrow paths. This, you realize, is the part no one writes into chronicles or sermons, how much a wife's world depends on small freedoms. An extra walk, a neighbor's favor, a morning free from the tyranny of tasks. These tiny moments are blessings, precious and fragile, and maybe, just maybe, you're starting to understand something profound. There is strength in adaptation, in slipping quietly through the cracks of expectation, in bending like ivy on stone, flexible and persistent, even when the world seems built to break you. You collapse into bed that night, muscles aching, hands raw, eyes heavy with fatigue. Your husband's steady breathing fills the room. Elena sleeps softly in her cradle nearby. The fire's glow fades to embers. You've done nothing remarkable today, nothing that will be recorded in dusty ledgers or sung by minstrels. But your home is warm, your child is fed, and your wool is spun. You have made it through another day. And in this small survival, you find a flicker of quiet triumph. The days lengthen, and you notice how the light changes as spring deepens its hold. The early morning sun creeps through the cracks in your wooden shutters, spilling pale gold onto the dirt floor. The air smells different now, softer, sweeter, filled with the promise of growth. Birds call out from the hedgerows, their songs weaving through the fields like invisible threads. You trudge through the daily grind with a little more ease, though the weight of your duties never truly lessens. There's always laundry to wash, bread to bake, pots to scrub, and a child who demands your constant attention. Yet the rhythm of the season seems to whisper encouragement, nudging you to breathe deeper, to remember life beyond the four walls of your cottage. One morning, as you milk the goats, you spot a stranger in the village square. A monk, perhaps wrapped in a faded brown robe, carrying a wooden staff, worn smooth from travel. His eyes are kind but tired, and he moves slowly, as if burdened by the world's sorrows. You wonder what stories he carries in his satchel. Has he walked for days, weeks? You imagine the miles behind him, dusty roads, cold nights under the stars, prayers whispered in languages you do not understand. The villagers gather to hear him speak. His voice is low but firm, telling tales of saints and sinners, miracles and damnation. Some listen with rapt attention, others with skepticism. You stand near the edge of the crowd, holding Elena close, curious but cautious. His stories are different from the playful songs of the traveling performer, heavier, somehow weighted with lessons and warnings. He speaks of a woman named Hildegard, a visionary abbess who could see the future and heal the sick with her words. You've heard whispers of her before, a woman who defied the norms of her time, whose writings challenge even today's scholars. Historians still argue whether Hildegard was truly a mystic or if her visions were shaped by political motives. But to you, she represents something extraordinary, a woman who dared to speak to lead to be more than just a wife or mother. After the sermon, the monk approaches you briefly. He notices Elena's bright eyes and smiles, telling you that children carry light into the darkest places. You feel a flicker of warmth at his words, a small kindness like a rare flower blooming in a harsh winter. Days turn into weeks, and you begin to find small moments of joy hidden in the mundane. The feel of soft wool between your fingers, the taste of fresh milk, the quiet lull of Elena's breathing as she sleeps. You start humming again, old melodies passed down from your mother's mother songs that seem to stitch your weary heart back together. Yet even as these moments come, the shadow of your duties remains, your husband's expectations, the village's gossip, the constant pressure to be perfect. You hear whispers about women who have lost their minds, overwhelmed by the relentless demands placed on them. Some say it's madness, others call it a curse. You wonder quietly how much of that is true and how much is fear speaking in the dark. One evening, your husband returns late, his steps uneven from the tavern's ale. His words slur as he complains about the tax collector's new demands, the poor harvest, the endless toil. You listen without judgment, though a knot tightens in your stomach. The day's light is gone, replaced by flickering candle flames and shadows that dance on the walls. You remember the clever miller's wife from the festival's tale. You think about how she might have faced days like this, heavy with worry, heavy with silence. You wonder if in some small way you carry her spirit within you, not loud or bold, but steady and sly, a quiet rebellion woven into the fabric of your life. Sleep comes slowly that night, the river dream returning wide and rushing, waiting just beyond the bank. You close your eyes and imagine stepping into its cold embrace, letting the water carry you somewhere new, a place where you might breathe freely, sing loudly, live without fear. But morning comes as always, and you rise once more to face the day. The world is unchanged, but you carry a secret flicker of hope, a small fire burning in your chest. It is enough. The dawn stretches its rosy fingers over the village, a gentle yawn awakening the earth from its slumber. You step outside, feeling the crisp morning air wrap around you like a soft linen shawl, carrying with it the faint aroma of damp soil wildflowers and distant smoke from hearth fires. The world seems to breathe quietly in this moment, the stillness broken only by the chirping of sparrows and the occasional bleat of a goat. Your tiny daughter Elena coos softly in her cradle nearby, reaching up with tiny grasping hands as if trying to catch the golden sunlight spilling through the window. You take a deep breath and steady yourself for the day ahead. The endless cycle of tasks awaits, fetching water, churning butter, baking bread, mending clothes, a steady rhythm that has become both a comfort and a chain. Yet beneath the humdrum of routine, a subtle restlessness stirs deep within you. Sometimes, when the house is quiet, you find your thoughts wandering beyond the village's borders, past the fields where the plow cuts through the earth, beyond the dense forests, where shadows gather like secrets. You imagine other lives, other possibilities, free and wide like the sky. This morning, the village buzzes with news. A nobleman's daughter is to be married off to a distant lord. The decision was made in a cold chamber, far away without her voice or consent. The weight of such news settles heavily on your heart. You remember your own youth, the small rebellions hidden in whispered prayers and stolen moments of laughter. How many of your sisters, your friends, have been swallowed by arranged marriages, their dreams folded away like scraps of worn fabric? You wonder if any of them dared to resist, or if resignation was their only refuge. Later that day, as you pass through the village square, you overhear hushed conversations about the upcoming feast of Pentecost. It promises music, dancing, and a fleeting taste of joy for everyone. Your heart longs for it, the chance to lose yourself in the swirl of color, the pulse of drum beats beneath your feet, the carefree laughter that seems like a distant melody in your daily life. But as always, your responsibilities tether you firmly. Elena's cries, the unending chores, the vigilant eyes of neighbors who expect you to be the perfect wife and mother. Still, somewhere deep inside, a tiny flame flickers. You recall a story your cousin once shared, a woman who slipped away one night to dance beneath the stars, free and wild, for just a few precious hours. Such acts were small secret rebellions, almost invisible, yet they carried immense power. You hold on to that thought, a whisper of freedom that perhaps one day you too might embrace. In scholarly circles, historians debate endlessly about the autonomy of medieval women. Were such moments of defiance exceptions, or were they threads woven through daily life, subtle acts of resistance against a world designed to confine? You lean toward the latter, because even in the harshest conditions, the human spirit seeks light, seeking to flutter its wings even if just for a moment. As dusk settles, you find yourself humming a ballad your grandmother taught you, the melody soft and haunting. It tells of a clever woman who outsmarts a cruel lord with nothing but her wit and courage. The words wrap around you like a warm blanket, soothing the ache of confinement. Elena's bright eyes watch you, and you realize that these stories passed down through generations are seeds of resilience and hope planted deep within the heart. Your husband's moods ebb and flow with the seasons. Sometimes he is gentle, sharing quiet moments and stories from the fields or tavern. Other times, frustration darkens his face, and you brace yourself against the storm. Yet beneath his rough exterior, you catch glimpses of tenderness reserved only for you and Elena. It is a complicated dance, this life with him sometimes heavy, sometimes light. Night drapes its velvet cloak over the village, and you sit by the hearth's dying embers. Shadows flicker on the walls, shapes shifting like ancient spirits. You think of the countless women who came before you, their lives buried beneath these same fields, their voices faint but persistent in the silence. You carry their stories quietly within you, a legacy of strength and endurance. Sleep eventually claims you, pulling you into dreams where the river flows calm and wide, inviting you to rest beside its gentle current. You surrender to its cool embrace, letting go of the day's burdens, knowing tomorrow will bring new challenges and perhaps new moments of light. The first light of dawn seeps through the cracks in your cottage walls, soft and hesitant, like the world itself is waking gently, unwilling to disturb the fragile peace of early morning. You stir beside Elena, feeling her warm breath against your skin, her tiny hand curling instinctively around your finger. Outside, the village is just beginning to hum, roosters crowing, dogs barking softly, the muted footsteps of early risers heading to their fields or wells. It's a quiet symphony that has played in this place for generations, marking the slow, steady passage of time. Today, as you prepare to step into the endless cycle of chores, a peculiar restlessness settles in your chest. It's not the usual tiredness that pulls at your eyelids or the ache in your muscles from yesterday's labor. No, this is a deeper stirring, a whisper of curiosity and yearning that you dare not voice aloud. You watch Elena's eyes blink open, bright and unknowing, filled with the innocent promise of a future yet to be written. For her, the world is wide and wild and free. For you, it is a web of duty and expectation woven tight and unforgiving. You step outside to fetch water from the village well, the cold morning air kissing your cheeks. Around you, other women gather, some nod in greeting, others offer tired smiles, their faces maps of hardship and resilience. These gatherings, though brief, are lifelines. They are moments where shared burdens become lighter, where whispered advice and secret remedies pass from one to another, carried on breath and soft laughter. Marigold, a woman known for her knowledge of herbs, leans in close and shares a recipe for a tea to ease the weight in your shoulders, a small gift, a thread of comfort in a harsh world. As you carry your bucket back, You think of the generations before you, women who walked these same paths, whose hands shaped the land, whose voices were silenced or ignored in the grand histories told by men. Midwives who held the village's secrets in their calloused palms, wise women who healed and counseled in shadows, their power unseen but deeply felt. These stories are your inheritance, whispered down like a sacred song. Yet scholars argue whether these women truly wielded power or were confined strictly to the margins. You believe the truth lies somewhere in between power that was hidden subtle but no less real. Later, as the sun climbs higher and the village comes alive, you steal a rare moment to rest by the hearth. Elena naps beside you, her chest rising and falling with the soft rhythm of sleep. You hum a lullaby your grandmother once sang, a melody heavy with longing and hope. The song tells of a woman who outwitted a cruel lord, her cunning, a weapon sharper than any sword. You let the words wrap around you, a balm for your weary spirit. The evening brings a welcome distraction. A traveling minstrel has arrived, his presence as unexpected as spring's first bloom. The village green fills with curious faces eager for the stories and music he carries. You stand at the edge of the crowd, holding Elena close, her wide eyes reflecting the flickering light of torches. The minstrel's lute sings tales of distant lands and daring deeds of love lost and found, of battles fought both with sword and heart. One song captivates the crowd, a ballad of a woman who disguised herself as a knight to fight in a crusade, her bravery hidden beneath armor and steel. The crowd gasps, caught between disbelief and admiration. You smile quietly, thinking of all the women whose stories remain untold, their courage veiled by the passing centuries. As night deepens and the village quiets, you return home, the minstrel's melodies still echoing softly in your mind. You lay Elena to rest and settle by the hearth, the fire's flickering glow casting dancing shadows that seem to whisper ancient secrets. You close your eyes and imagine the river from your dreams, its steady current carrying you away from burdens, if only for a moment. In this quiet, you find a fragile peace, a momentary escape from the relentless demands of your life. Tomorrow will bring its trials, but also its moments of grace. And through it all, you carry the stories of your foremothers, strong, wise, and unyielding. The dawn comes quietly to your village, brushing the rooftops with soft hues of pink and gold. You awake slowly, the cool touch of morning air slipping through the cracked window. In the dim light, you see Elena curled beside you, her small hand twitching gently as if chasing dreams. You feel the weight of the day already settling on your shoulders, but also something deeper, a restlessness you've learned to hold close and speak of only in whispers. You rise and move through your familiar tasks, the steady rhythm of gathering water, tending the hearth, and preparing a meager meal that sustains you and your family. The village is already stirring, outside voices and footsteps blending into the background hum of life. Yet your mind drifts beyond these walls. You remember a story that your grandmother told you once about a woman named Melisande who lived centuries before and was said to have secretly advised kings and queens, influencing the fate of entire kingdoms without ever stepping into the light. How many women, like Melisande, have been lost to history, their stories hidden beneath layers of dust and silence? As you carry water from the well, the sun warming your back, you notice the other women gathering nearby. They are dressed in worn but sturdy clothes, faces etched with the lines of hard work and quiet endurance. Marigold is there as always, her hands skillful as she plucks herbs and flowers from the earth. She shares a new remedy she learned from a traveling healer, a bitter tea that promises to soothe aching joints and restless nights. You accept the gift gratefully, knowing such knowledge is a treasure in a world that often forgets the needs of women. Later, you help prepare the midday meal, your hands moving automatically while your thoughts linger on the constraints that bind you. Marriage was arranged when you were barely a girl, a pact made between families with little regard for your own wishes. Your husband is kind enough most days, but the knowledge that your life is not your own is a constant shadow. You recall reading that historians still debate the autonomy of medieval wives, whether their roles were purely servile or if subtle forms of influence and power thrived beneath the surface. You suspect it's the latter because you have seen the quiet strength in your mother's eyes, the unspoken negotiations and sacrifices made daily to carve out space within rigid confines. The afternoon brings a welcome respite. You join a few women to gather herbs and wildflowers, the sun casting a golden glow over the fields. Laughter bubbles up among you, a rare and precious sound that feels like rebellion in a world built on endurance and sacrifice. Someone tells the story of Eleanor of Aquitaine, a queen who defied expectations by ruling vast lands and participating in political intrigue, challenging the notion that women were merely pawns. Such tales are balm to your spirit, reminders that strength can take many forms. As twilight descends, you return home, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of earth and wood smoke. You lay Elena down to sleep and tend the hearth, the flickering flames casting shadows that dance like old ghosts along the walls. You hum a lullaby passed down through generations, a soft, haunting melody that speaks of love, loss, and hope. Before sleep claims you, your mind drifts once more to the river from your dreams, the slow, steady flow, carrying away burdens and whispering promises of freedom. In the quiet dark, you hold on to that vision, a fragile thread of possibility woven through the fabric of your life. The soft light of early morning slips through the cracks in your wooden window, painting the rough-hewn walls of your cottage with a gentle golden glow. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers from the fields beyond the village. You awake slowly, your body heavy from the endless cycle of work and worry, but your mind drifts to a different place, a place where you might catch a glimpse of freedom or at least a flicker of hope. Elena lies beside you, her small chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm unburdened by the weight of the world. You trace her delicate fingers with your own, marveling at the innocence in her eyes, so full of promise and yet untouched by the hardships that await her. You wonder what kind of life awaits her, if it will be kinder, or if the same harsh demands will press down on her young shoulders as they do on yours. The village around you stirs to life with the familiar sounds of morning. Roosters crow, signaling the start of the day, and the low murmur of voices drifts through the air as neighbors exchange greetings and news. The clatter of wooden wheels on cobblestone and the soft hoofbeats of horses create a steady rhythm that underpins daily life. Hear a rhythm as old as the land itself. You rise from your bed and begin your morning chores, moving through the motions with practiced ease. The well is your first stop. Its stone walls cool and damp as you lower your bucket into the depths. The water that rises is heavy, but life-giving, a small comfort in a world that often feels unyielding. As you carry the bucket back, the sun peeks over the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields and bathing everything in a warm, amber light. Today, the village feels different. There is a buzz of anticipation in the air, a break in the usual monotony. Word has spread that a traveling merchant has arrived, bringing with him exotic goods and stories from lands far beyond your small corner of the world. You watch as women gather around his cart, fingers brushing over brightly colored fabrics and curious trinkets, their faces alight with wonder and longing. You wish for a fleeting moment that you too could leave this place, to see the wide world beyond the hills, to taste freedom and adventure. But such dreams are dangerous, and the chains of expectation bind you tightly. Marriage, motherhood, obedience. These are the pillars of your existence, the invisible walls that surround your life. Your husband is kind, but the authority he holds over you is unquestioned, as it was for your mother and her mother before her. As you prepare the midday meal, your thoughts drift to the stories of women who dared to defy these norms. You remember the tale of Eleanor of Aquitaine, a queen who wielded power and influence in a male-dominated world, ruling vast lands with intelligence and courage. Her story is a beacon, a reminder that even within the constraints of society, women found ways to shape their destinies. Yet historians still debate whether Eleanor's power was truly hers or merely a reflection of the men she influenced. You suspect the truth is complex, woven from both struggle and triumph. Later, you join the other women in the fields to gather herbs and wildflowers. Their laughter rings out a rare and precious sound that lightens your heart. Marigold shares a new remedy she learned from a healer who travels the countryside in secret, tending to those the church refuses to help. The healer's knowledge is a dangerous gift, whispered about in hushed tones and feared by the authorities. Yet it offers hope and healing to many, a quiet rebellion against a world that often turns a blind eye to women's suffering. As the sun begins to set, you return home, the sky ablaze with hues of orange and pink. You lay Elena down to sleep and tend the hearth. The flickering flames casting dancing shadows that seem to breathe life into the stories of your foremothers. You hum a lullaby passed down through generations, its melody soft and haunting. Speaking of endurance and love, night falls, and you sit by the window gazing at the stars that shimmer like distant fires. Each one feels like a silent witness to the countless women who have come before you, women who loved, fiercely suffered quietly, and dreamed endlessly, beneath the same endless sky. Your thoughts drift once more to the river from your dreams, the steady current carrying away burdens and whispering promises of freedom and possibility. In this quiet moment, you find a fragile peace, a brief respite from the relentless demands of your life. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but also moments of grace. And through it all, you carry the stories of strength, resilience, and hope passed down through generations, a legacy as enduring as the stars themselves. The morning light slips quietly into your room, soft and gentle, like a secret whispered by the dawn. You awake slowly, your body heavy with the weight of yesterday's labor, your mind restless despite the peace that should come with sleep. Outside, the village begins to stir, the clatter of wooden carts on stone, the low murmur of voices, the bleating of goats mingling with the crow of a distant rooster. All the sounds of a world that keeps moving, no matter how small or worn you feel. You rise and begin the familiar routine, stoking the fire until it glows, warmly grinding grain for bread, fetching water from the well that never seems quite full enough. These are the rhythms that define your days, a dance of endurance and careful balance. Each task demands your attention, yet each is shadowed by the knowledge that you must always do more, be more to keep your family safe and whole. As you work, your thoughts drift to the invisible burdens you carry, those expectations woven into your very existence. Marriage, motherhood, obedience to your husband and his family, all duties assigned before you even learned to read or write. The life of a medieval wife is a narrow path bordered by rules and customs that leave little room for your own desires or dreams. You know this path well because your mother walked it before you and her mother before her, each generation passing the same story down like an heirloom. Yet beneath this heavy cloak of duty, there is a flicker of something else, a quiet strength, a secret resilience. You remember stories whispered by the women in your village, tales of those who found ways to wield power in subtle, unexpected ways. Like Melisande, the noblewoman who advised kings, or the healers who tended to the sick in secret, defying the church's harsh decrees. These women did not wield swords or command armies, but their influence shaped the lives around them in profound ways. Historians still argue about the true extent of their power, but you feel it in your bones. The power of quiet rebellion and wisdom passed through generations. As the day unfolds, you join the women gathering herbs and wildflowers at the edge of the forest. The sun filters through the leaves, casting dappled light on the soft earth beneath your feet. Laughter and stories rise like birdsong among your circle, a rare and precious sound that lifts the spirit. Marigold shares a new remedy she learned from a traveling healer, a bitter tea to soothe aching joints and restless nights. Such knowledge is a treasure in a world that often forgets women's needs. You notice how these small moments, shared smiles, whispered secrets, the touch of a friend's hand become lifelines binding you together against the isolation of your daily toil. Even as your hands work, your heart listens to the stories that ripple through the group, stories of love and loss, courage and sacrifice. Returning home as twilight deepens, you prepare the evening meal, the scent of herbs and roasting meat filling the air. Elena plays quietly at your feet, her innocence a balm for your weary soul. After the meal, you tuck her into bed and hum a lullaby passed down through generations, a soft, haunting melody that speaks of endurance, hope, and the unbreakable bond between mother and child. The fire burns low, casting flickering shadows that dance across the walls like ancient ghosts. You sit by the window gazing at the stars scattered across the velvet sky. Each one feels like a silent witness to the countless women who have come before you, women who loved, fiercely suffered quietly, and dreamed endlessly beneath the same vast sky. Your thoughts return once more to the river from your dreams, the steady current carrying away burdens and whispering promises of freedom and possibility. In the stillness of the night, you find a fragile peace, a brief respite from the relentless demands of your life. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but also moments of grace, and through it all, you carry the stories of strength, resilience, and hope passed down through generations. You close your eyes and let the gentle rhythm of your breath carry you into sleep, the lullaby of history cradling you like a warm embrace. The dawn stretches slowly across the horizon, soft pinks and pale blues bleeding into one another like a watercolor painting in progress. You wake to the cool touch of morning air slipping through the cracks in your humble wooden shutters, the faint chirping of birds threading through the silence before the village stirs to life. It is a fragile moment, one of quiet stillness before the day's relentless demands reclaim you. You linger a little longer beneath your threadbare blanket, savoring the warmth and the brief illusion of peace, knowing full well that soon you must rise and step back into the ceaseless cycle. As your bare feet meet the cold floorboards, the sharp contrast jolts you awake. You dress quickly, your hands moving with practiced ease through the motions, fastening laces, smoothing your linen shift, wrapping the heavy wool cloak that is both a shield and a burden. The scent of wood smoke lingers faintly in the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil and dried herbs stacked in the corner. These familiar smells are both comforting and oppressive reminders of the world you inhabit. Outside the village hums to life in soft, muted tones. Smoke curls gently from chimneys, blending into the mist that hovers like a veil over the thatched rooftops. Farmers trudge toward their fields, their backs bent under the weight of baskets and tools. Children chase one another along the narrow lanes, their laughter fleeting and bright, like fireflies before fading into the background noise. You join this slow, steady pulse, another thread woven into the tapestry of communal existence. The sun rises higher, casting golden light that dapples through the leaves of ancient oaks standing sentinel on the village outskirts. You set about your morning tasks, feeding the animals, gathering eggs, checking the larder for dwindling supplies. Each act is a small knot in the web of survival, binding you tighter to the land and the people who depend on you. The day's work is never done, and yet each completed task offers a sliver of accomplishment amid the endless toil. In these moments, you reflect on the deeper constraints that shape your existence. Being a medieval wife means wearing countless invisible chains, social expectations, legal restrictions, economic dependencies that limit your choices and define your worth in ways both subtle and brutal. You are expected to be patient, obedient, and silent virtues prized above all else. Your body is a vessel for lineage and labor, your voice a quiet echo in the male-dominated chorus of power. The law often views you as your husband's property, your autonomy circumscribed by customs as old and unyielding as the stones beneath your feet. Yet beneath the surface of these rigid structures, you sense currents of resistance and resilience. Stories passed down by women in whispered circles speak of quiet rebellions, secret gatherings where knowledge of herbs and healing is shared. Coded letters exchanged to maintain connections beyond the village, moments of defiance hidden behind smiles and bowed heads. Historians still argue whether these acts were widespread or isolated, but to you, they are vivid evidence of a will that refuses to be crushed. As the morning wanes, you walk to the edge of the forest to gather medicinal plants, your basket swinging lightly at your side. The dappled sunlight warms your skin, and the scent of moss and pine fills your lungs. Here in the embrace of the wild, you feel a fleeting sense of freedom. The world beyond the village rules, beyond the walls that contain you. You kneel to pick sprigs of yarrow and elderflower fingers stained green with the life of the earth. These plants, so small yet potent, hold the power to heal wounds both physical and unseen. On your way back, you pause by a bubbling brook, watching the water ripple over smooth stones. It reminds you of the river from your dreams, a steady current that carries away sorrows and promises renewal. The villagers often speak of water as a symbol of life and transformation, a force that shapes the land and the people who live upon it. In its endless flow, you find hope that even the strictest boundaries can be softened, that change, however slow, is possible. Returning home, you find your husband already at work repairing a fence, his brow furrowed with concentration. Your exchange is brief, a nod, a few clipped words, the language of duty and distance that often defines your marriage. Despite the weariness that settles between you, there is an unspoken understanding of shared burdens, even if your hearts then rarely meet. The bond of necessity is strong, but love in the way you yearn for is a rare and fragile thing. The afternoon stretches long and hot. You tend to the children mending clothes, preparing meals from what the earth and the pantry provide. Your hands move with steady rhythm, though your mind wanders to the tales told by village elders of women who found moments of joy and power in the spaces left by their prescribed roles. Like the weaver who crafted tapestries that told the history of the land, or the storyteller whose words preserved memories and wisdom for generations. These stories passed down through centuries are the lifeblood of your identity, a tether to something greater than yourself. As twilight descends, you light a small lamp and sit by the fire, the flickering flame casting dancing shadows on the rough stone walls. You pull Elena close, her breath warm against your cheek as you begin to hum a lullaby learned from your grandmother, a melody soft and haunting, filled with the ache of longing and the promise of safety. The day's worries begin to dissolve in the quiet darkness, replaced by the fragile peace that only night can bring. Before sleep carries you away, you gaze once more at the stars, imagining the countless women who have looked up at the same sky. Their struggles and triumphs are woven into the constellations, a silent testament to endurance and hope. You close your eyes, holding the river's steady flow in your heart, letting its whispered promise lull you toward rest, knowing that tomorrow the dance begins anew, but you will face it with the quiet strength of those who came before. The soft, pale light of dawn filters through the cracks in your small wooden window, painting your modest room in gentle shades of gray and lavender. You wake slowly, your body heavy with the weight of countless yesterdays and the quiet knowledge of what today will demand. Outside the village is still wrapped in the delicate hush of morning, the kind of silence that feels sacred. A brief pause before the world resumes its relentless rhythm. You rise and move through the familiar motions, each step and gesture etched into muscle memory. The linen shift you pull over your head is rough against your skin, but it's all you have. The chill of the morning air nips at your bare arms as you fasten your cloak and prepare to face the day. There's a certain comfort in these routines, a kind of anchor in the storm of expectations and duties. Your feet tread softly over the worn floorboards, heading toward the hearth, where the embers from last night's fire still glow faintly. You coax the flames back to life, the crackling sound filling the room and chasing away the lingering cold. The smell of burning wood mingles with the faint scent of herbs hanging from the ceiling, a reminder of the quiet power that women like you hold even within the strict confines of medieval life. Stepping outside the village awakens around you. Smoke spirals lazily from thatched rooftops, and the distant clatter of carts and voices rises with the morning sun. You join the steady flow of villagers moving toward their tasks, your heart tightening at the unyielding cycle of labor. To be a medieval wife is to carry a load invisible to many domestic duties, childbearing, managing the household, and navigating a world where your voice often feels like a whisper lost in a storm. The fields stretch before you, green and gold beneath the brightening sky. You set to work gathering vegetables and tending the animals, the familiar smells of earth and hay grounding you. There is a rhythm to this work, a melody of sweat and persistence that carries a strange beauty. Yet beneath it lies a current of exhaustion and sacrifice. Your body aches not just from the physical toil, but from the relentless pressure to fulfill roles prescribed long before you were born. You recall stories told by older women, tales of wives who endured hardship with quiet dignity, who bore children amid plagues and wars, who kept their families fed and clothed with whatever the land provided. One such story lingers in your mind, that of Alice, a woman who famously stood up to a local lord's tax collector, refusing to give up her last sack of grain despite threats and intimidation. The courage of women like Alice shines like a flickering candle in the darkness, a testament to the unyielding spirit hidden beneath the expected obedience. As the sun climbs higher, you find yourself drawn to the village well, the the communal heartbeat of daily life. Here women gather to draw water, share news, and exchange quiet words of support and solidarity. Evelyn, with her quick smile and sharper tongue, recounts a tale of a merchant's wife who outwitted thieves by dressing as a man, a rare story that shakes the usual narratives of female submission. Historians still debate whether such acts of defiance were widespread or exceptional moments of bravery, but to you, they feel like whispered promises of possibility. The midday heat presses down as you return home, the air heavy with the scent of baking bread and roasting herbs. You prepare the evening meal with practiced hands, the ritual offering a small comfort amid the endless demands. Elena plays nearby, her laughter, a bright thread weaving through the otherwise steady hum of chores and obligations. Her innocence is both balm and reminder, a future you hope to protect even as you navigate the confines of your own existence. As twilight approaches, you settle by the hearth, the flickering fire casting long shadows on the stone walls. You hum a lullaby learned from your grandmother, a melody soft and winding like a river. The day's burdens begin to lift, replaced by the soothing embrace of night. Gazing out the window, you find solace in the stars, each one a silent witness to the struggles and triumphs of countless women before you. You close your eyes, letting the quiet rhythm of your breath and the distant murmur of the river cradle you into rest. The journey is far from over, but for now the gentle flow of time carries you toward dreams, a whispered promise of strength, endurance, and hope. The night settles gently over the village, like a soft, worn blanket, the kind your mother might have wrapped around you when you were just a child learning to dream. The stars blink quietly overhead, casting faint silver glimmers on the thatched rooftops, and the air is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and damp earth. You sit near the hearth, where the last embers glow softly, their warmth a fragile comfort in the quiet dark. Today has been another long day, filled with the familiar chores that stretch from dawn until dusk, feeding the animals, mending clothes, tending to the hearth, and caring for Elena, who sleeps soundly in your lap. Your hands, though worn and roughened by years of work, move with a gentle grace as you braid her hair, your fingers weaving care and love into each strand. This small act feels like a rebellion against the weight of the world, a quiet defiance that says here in this moment we are safe. Being a medieval wife is a role shaped by countless expectations, many of which feel like invisible chains tightening with every breath. You are the keeper of the home, the guardian of lineage, the silent partner in your husband's life, and often the unseen laborer whose contributions are overlooked by history. Yet beneath these burdens lies a deep well of resilience and quiet power carried in stories passed from mother to daughter, in shared glances between women, and in the small acts of kindness and courage that stitch together the fabric of daily life. As the night deepens, you think about the debates among historians, those who argue whether medieval wives were entirely powerless, or whether they wielded subtle influence within their households and communities. You remember the tale of Lady Elfthryth, who despite her status managed to secure a degree of political influence in the 10th century by leveraging her position as queen and mother. These stories remind you that power often wears many masks and that strength can be found in places both grand and humble. Outside the village has quieted save for the occasional bark of a dog or the distant call of an owl. The world seems to hold its breath, wrapped in the tender hush of night. You cradle Elena close, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breath, and let your thoughts drift like the river in the stories steady, enduring, flowing through time. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new tasks, and the familiar demands of your role. But for now, you allow yourself this moment of peace, a soft sanctuary in the endless rhythm of medieval life. The lullaby of the past hums gently in your mind, a timeless melody woven from threads of hardship and hope, strength and surrender. Slowly sleep beckons, wrapping you in its quiet embrace. The world fades to a gentle whisper, and you drift away, carried on the steady current of history and the tender promise of dawn. The night deepens softly around you, a velvet curtain drawn gently over the day's cares. Your breathing slows, matching the quiet rhythm of the world. Outside, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of the river, and the faint chorus of crickets singing their timeless lullaby. In this calm, the sharp edges of your burdens blur, softened by the gentle hush of twilight. You rest in the quiet knowledge that though the path you walk is steep and often shadowed, you are not alone. The stories of countless women before you ripple through time like a slow, soothing current, each one a quiet beacon of strength, endurance, and grace. Their whispered courage surrounds you now, wrapping you in a warm, invisible cloak of shared resilience. Let your mind drift like a leaf, floating on a slow-moving stream carried effortlessly by the gentle flow. Feel the weight of the day lift, replaced by a calm so deep it almost hums in your bones. Tomorrow's dawn is waiting patiently, a soft promise shimmering just beyond the horizon. So as you settle into rest, allow yourself to sink into the tender embrace of night. Know that you have journeyed through history's quiet shadows and emerged wrapped in the light of understanding and hope. Sleep well, dear listener, cradled by the lullaby of the past.